Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. And to my left, or possibly your right, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone? Glad to be back.
I'm glad to have you back. I've been kind of going at this thing myself here for the past couple of weeks, and it's been a lot. It's been rather unnerving, to say the least. Tell us about where you were, Ben.
So I took a little getaway to Minnesota, which I do every summer. We go get a cabin with the family, Whitney side of the family, and, basically hang out on a lake. Had almost no cell service. We were about 25-minute drive from like a town. So, it was a good little ride to get into town. It was kind of cool being close to town this time. Usually we pick a cabin that's like 2 hours, hour and a half from the nearest Walmart or Target. But this one was close. I could get away from the family if I needed to hit the gym real quick and stuff. But coming back to it, being at the cabin the majority of the time, no cell phone service hardly. My text messages weren't going through. Phone calls weren't coming through. And it was at first like a lot of anxiety because I'm always so involved with Rock, answering the phone, making sure decisions with clients being made, the proper decisions as I see them proper, my opinion, but relinquishing control. And after a few days of anxiety of like, oh my God, if I don't answer my phone, the world's going to fall apart. But after about 3 or 4 days, it was kind of nice. I was actually leaving my phone in the kitchen plugged into the wall for hours at a time, which is not what I usually do.
I know it's tough for me too when I go on vacation to not call you or not call Melissa or not call, just have to feel like I need to be in the know of what's going on.
Hey, remember I'm here. Don't forget me.
Yeah. Oh man, what's going on? What's going on over there while I'm not there? Those sorts of things. And the reality of it is we were fine. It's, you got to go, you got to enjoy your time there and disconnect and kind of put the phone up. And I think it probably, you being able to do that added to the quality of the vacation, right?
No, definitely. Otherwise, I feel like all eyes are on me all the time because, we've talked about balance in past podcasts, and I do recognize it's become a lifestyle for me where between being in recovery myself, my own program, being involved with Alcoholics Anonymous, having sponsees, plus doing this for work, I am constantly on my phone. And there are times balance-wise where I start to feel guilty because my family's sitting there, or Kai's at my leg, pulling on my leg, or Weston wants to go outside and play basketball and I'm on a work call. Last night, we had a thing going on and where we were trying to get a young lady into a treatment center. And this one was a real team effort to get her to go. And, dude, I was on the phone for off and on with different people over the course of an hour and a half probably, while cooking dinner with Kai, watching a little phone while he's eating his noodles. It's just chaotic, and it's better quality of life if I'm not on my phone enjoying my time with my family. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, fortunately, my wife was, what was she doing? Oh, she was getting a massage.
Very nice.
And then she went to see my dad, which my dad's doing better with the stroke, and a lot of people now know about that. But, it's like when you take 2 steps forward, he does take 1 step back, and just kind of navigating that is pretty interesting. But first and foremost, if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching it on YouTube. Share it if you can, but also get into the comments because, even if we only have 20, 30 people watch this or watch the video, that's 20 or 30 people. I kind of equate this to, imagine getting in front of 20 or 30 people, and it's easy for me to look at the how many views has this YouTube video gotten, and it's not a huge YouTube channel, and it's not expected to be. But if 1 or 5 or 10 of you that do watch the video give us some comments on it. How has control or this work stuff that we've been talking about, how has this impacted you? Has it played out in your life in any way, shape, or form? Because it is something that when we do get clean and sober, we have to navigate, because it's easy for us, and you've heard us talk about this a lot, having balance and being able to decipher when things are out of balance, and kind of, like what you just did, going up there and making the conscious effort to put the phone away and just be present. And it's something, honestly, that I have to continue to work on in my family. And it can become a real problem. But one thing that you said there that I think we can hone in on a little bit is you were referencing our decisions being made here that are the right decisions in your opinion. And I think, and that just caught my ear. And I think that's a good kind of segue into a good topic that we can stay on for a little bit. It's been told to me a lot. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one, but go into that a little bit, what you were referring to.
One of the very first things that I was told by my sponsor when I was just starting this journey of sobriety this time was opinions kill alcoholics and drug addicts. And let me throw this out there. Nobody has a monopoly on sobriety. Not 12-step programs, not Celebrate Recovery, not the church, not Smart Recovery, not somebody doing a hobby that helps get them sober. There is no monopoly on recovery. There's many ways to do this. There's been many ways people have gone about it. And one of the things that sometimes concerns me, I was sitting down with one of our newer clients, very first time in treatment, and it was kind of cool because we were in a situation where I got to spend a little bit of extra time with them yesterday, about an hour and a half, where it was just the two of us, and he kind of had some questions because he's never been involved with 12-step programs, never done the treatment thing, and he was like, I keep hearing this, and I keep hearing that, and I don't agree with this, and I don't agree with that. I don't see how it can be that way. In this case, he was referencing, he keeps hearing all about spirituality and God. And it really, what was super cool about the conversation that I had with him is he brought up these concerns that he was having that he couldn't buy into. And I shared with him, I said, dude, I'm so glad you're bringing this stuff up because I felt the same exact way. He looked at me like puzzled, like, you did? I'm like, yeah, man, like I didn't want anything to do with the higher power or God. And you can, I'm just using this as the example, but basically, he was in a meeting and someone said something along the lines of, well, you better find God or you're going to die. Now, that's somebody's opinion. For me, I'm always very much like I pay attention to what the program says and what it doesn't say. Like I follow the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Nowhere in that big book does it say, find God or you're going to die. And basically from reading the literature, like it tells you to be open-minded. You don't have to have somebody else's conception or understanding. You can take these ideas that other people have, their experiences, and you can take what you want and leave what you will. But I think there's people come into early recovery and they hear all these sayings, they hear all these opinions, and they take it as the gospel like, well, if this guy said, get God or you're going to die, then everybody must feel that way, or you're not going to get sober. Like, that's not the case. Another very easy example. I hear some people, now, don't get me wrong, I think it's a good idea. There's a saying 90 and 90, which means go to 90 meetings in your first 90 days. I think that's a good idea. But just to make it clear, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, 12-step programs, the literature, doesn't say anything about do 90 and 90. Now, for me, being beyond the first 90 days and nearly 12 years sober, I honestly got to tell you, Tom, I don't have to go to a meeting every single day. It's not like if I don't go to a meeting 7 days a week, I'm going to drink and drug again. And some people sitting in meetings will tell you if you don't go to a meeting every day, 30 years later, you're going to drink a drug. It's just not the case. People don't get into this. I have to remember for myself, I'm in a place where I do this for my own recovery. I also work in the treatment industry. Not everybody else's recovery is going to look like mine. There's people out there that say they're lawyers, or maybe it's a waitress, and they have a job, let's say for instance, that they have to go to where they can't necessarily let people know they're in recovery. Maybe somebody works for the FBI, and they can't come out and be like, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, and they got to kind of keep it under wraps or something along those lines. Like, not everybody's recovery is going to look the same. Not everybody needs to go to a meeting 7 days a week. Some people love it. Oh, let me touch on this, because this is another part of the conversation that he found intriguing. Something I was taught: when we're in active addiction, at first we start using it. Generally, it's fun. Then it becomes a habit. Then it becomes necessary as we get addicted. Recovery is the exact opposite. At first, we're beaten down. We're completely addicted. So at first, it's necessary. You start attending these meetings, going to your groups, working with your therapist. That becomes a habit. At some point, it becomes fun. Recovery today is fun. I was kind of off from the opinion thing, but I just want to touch on that because it was cool.
Yeah, again, this whole recovery thing, and we talk about this all the time, or at least I do, and I know you do too. It's an individualized type approach. I too had people in my first year of sobriety. They were very dogmatic in a way, and very assertive / aggressive in the sense of, if you don't do things this way, then you're doomed. And fortunately for me, it did. I was able to, I did the things that they were suggesting to do, and I didn't fall astray. But when I got a year of sobriety, and I was able at that time to more think for myself and be able to decipher, situations better and stuff like that, I looked back at that first year, and I thought to myself, well, what things were I doing over that first year that maybe I necessarily don't feel like I need to do today? And I was able to think for myself and make decisions based off of my past experiences. And I think when we get clean and sober, it's important for us to be able to, find the group of people that we actually trust and we can rely on, and we don't feel like they are trying to put themselves up on a pedestal. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are in programs of AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery, that they tend to put themselves up on pedestals. And the way that they do that is by, this dogmatic approach of, listen, you need to do things this way, and if you don't do it this way, it's not going to work for you. And that's so far from the truth. And I have tried over the years, and I feel like I've done a good job at separating myself from those people. So when I talk to people about getting sober, I base everything off of my experience and what worked for me and what didn't work for me. But I also leave it extremely open-ended to whoever it is that I'm talking with, that just because this was my experience and this is what worked for me doesn't mean that this is going to be your experience, and doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to work for you. Today, I go to one meeting a week. And that's it. It's every Wednesday night. It's been the same 8 or 10 guys that meet every Wednesday night for the last probably 4 years. And it's not broken, so I don't feel like it's necessary to fix it. Now, somebody else in the same situation, and Ben, I'm going to probably venture to say somebody like you, one meeting a week, and not having any sponsees and not being as engaged as what you are probably wouldn't work for you. Not saying that you would relapse, but you're in a position in, in terms of your program involvement, it's something that you enjoy more. I enjoy it. I enjoy going to my one meeting a week on Wednesdays. And will I sprinkle in more here and there? Yes, absolutely. But it's because I want to, and it's not because I feel like I have to, type thing, And so it's really important to be able to kind of like gauge and decipher where you are on this scale. And it is very important, though. In the beginning, everybody does have opinions. This whole program is unfortunately and fortunately based off of opinion. There are a lot of factual things inside the book of AA. Factual in the sense of this is what has worked since the mid-1930s. But we also have to remember that this book was written by a human, and this human had his own opinion of what is going to work best for getting people sober. So this whole program is, in a way, brought about by a bunch of people's opinions that has developed into, at this point, getting millions of people sober. Now, I'm not saying that there's not other programs out there that can work and does work. This is just happens to be what works for us. And, so being able to figure out, like, is this opinion something that I buy into? And if it's not, then seek out another opinion. But you also have to be able to decipher, okay, this may not be the opinion that I want, but it's the opinion that I need. And we have to be able to get to that point very, very early on in our sobriety, because if we can't, like what you said, take what you want and leave the rest. Unfortunately, there's people out there that take what they want. They take the least amount that they can and leave everything else, but what they're leaving is vital.
Yeah, no, that's tough because can't spot self-deception by yourself.
Yeah.
Right, Tom? I think a good way to point that out, for instance, Tom and I talk about it. Most people don't get sober their first try, stay sober their first try. Tom's a white chip wonder, one chip wonder, as they call it. Me, I went through several places over the course of years, putting in a lot of effort, but I didn't quite get it. An easy example is the guy that has to come back to us twice. They come back the first time, like Tom's saying, they took what they wanted, they utilized that, it didn't work out for them. They had to come back. So one of the first things I always do in a group is I sit them down and say, well, what are you going to do more now that you didn't do last time? And we'll kind of point out like their suggestions. Last time I didn't see you doing this. Last time I didn't see you doing that. Are you willing to do it this time? I don't think I need to do that, Ben. Really? Isn't it worth a try? You didn't do it last time, and you're back. So you got to figure out, like, what do you need to do more? Or maybe what do you need to do different? Maybe you're doing something before that you didn't necessarily need to do, and you need to replace it with something else. And one of the things that I always speak like this in my groups. I say it almost repetitively. It probably drives our clients crazy. But I'll say, this is my opinion based off my experience. And what's cool about that, that's what the big book of AA does as well. It's meant to be suggestive only. It makes that very, very clear. My experience is a fact. If I'm talking about my experience, it's factual. It happened for me. But I develop opinions based off of my experience fact. You know what I'm saying? And people, a lot of times, they'll say, for instance, look at Tom or I and say, I want my life to look like yours one day. Well, here's exactly what I did. Do you want that? And that's kind of, from what Tom was saying, like, helps people decipher what suggestions do I need to take. If you want a life that looks like mine, if you want a life that looks like Tom's, if I want a life that looks like my sponsor Jay's or my sponsor Freddie's, or so-and-so in the meeting who has 30 years and look like they're on top of the world. If I want my life to look like that, I ask them what they did. Plain and simple.
Yeah, yesterday I was meeting with one of our clients, and we were kind of just talking about like what his future is going to look like. And this particular person, I said, well, what are your goals for yourself? Like, if you could project out 3 years, where are you going to be? And he wasn't really sure, and nor did he put much thought into it. And we hear a lot inside the rooms, if you have 1 foot in tomorrow and 1 foot in yesterday, you're pissing all over today. And I get it. I get the concept of what that phrase, what they're referring to is stay in the moment. Well, at some point we do have to start thinking about the future. And what I challenged this particular person to do was, I want you to think out 3 years. Let's do it right now. Just give me some basic bullet points of things that you would like to see in 3 years. And a couple of those were, well, I want to find a relationship with a female that is meaningful, that is based off of, that's a healthy relationship, because this person wasn't used to having that, as most addicts aren't, I want to be settled in my career. Okay, well, what do you want your career to be? And he's like, well, I want to stay amongst, the electrical field, stuff like that. Where do you see yourself being inside of the electrical field? You know where you are now. Where do you see yourself in 3 years? And then we kind of went off onto the spiritual side of things. Where do you see yourself spiritually in 3 years? And all we were doing there is kind of some motivational interviewing and seeing, okay, this is where I want to be. And then I said to him, okay, so based off of where you know that you want to be in 3 years, and some of these can change, obviously, but we have a general idea and of where we want to be. What are the actions that you need to do to get there? And if you can do those sorts of things, it's going to help you outline the steps that you need to take to get there. And we got into talking about, okay, if I want to get from point A to point B, these are the things that I need to do. I want to grow spiritually more, so that means that I probably need to get more involved in the church, and I need to, I need my prayer hasn't been good, and I really need to start praying more. I want to have a meaningful relationship with a female, so now I need to stop looking for a relationship, because, listen, I'm a firm believer that the more that we're looking for that relationship, the harder it's going to be for us to actually get into that relationship. And that's based off of my own experience. When I stopped looking, fast forward 3.5 years, and God blessed me with my wife, career stuff as well. We laid all this stuff out and we outlined it all out. And I challenged him to, over the next week, I want you to pray more. I want you to pray with more intention. It's easy for us to get caught up in the moment and just throw a quick prayer up to God. Hey, I forgot to pray. So carve out some time and have some intent-driven prayer. And do all of these things, and just in a week's time, you'll see the progress that you made. You'll see the sense of accomplishment that you've had. And then you start kind of putting in the compounding stuff, and you can do this week in and week out in 3 years, where you see yourself being, you're not only going to reach that stuff, but you're going to far surpass it because of, pretty much compound interest. And it was cool because, and that's all based off of those are my opinions based off of my own experiences, like you were just referring to.
And it's cool too. It just so happens, I'm pretty sure I know which client you're referring to. Obviously, HIPAA stuff, I won't say the name and whatnot, but if I'm correct about who you're talking about, I also had a separate interaction with this individual. And what I'm hearing here is that Tom sat down with this individual and helped him with his thought processes. And I had actually had a separate discussion with him probably the night before, because I ran a night group, and he pulled me aside after the group, and we had a pretty long discussion about his thought processes. And here's the thing too, like, your thought processes now don't necessarily have to be ideal if you're seeking this guidance, right? Like I look at him like Tom was helping him guide him into like a future that, okay, here's what I'd like. And Tom was like, all right, here's some suggestions on how to get there. Here's what it looked like for me. But this guy also, at the same time, one of the things I had to tell him right now, he's really hard on himself. Would you agree with that?
Yes, very.
Like, judges himself hard. He's his own worst critic. He consistently judges himself for his thoughts. And I said, dude, you got to stop with that. Judge yourself for the action that you're doing right now. In particular, I'll just be straight up. In this case, meth is drug of choice. You know, people that do meth tend to be hypersexual. And he's like, "Oh, Ben, man, I'm having this thought of watching porn." And he told me, like, in the past, he's watched maybe a little bit too much. That he's, and you know, he doesn't classify himself as a sex addict, so to speak, or with a full blown porn addiction. But he's like, just the thought process that I'm wanting to even watch porn. What's wrong with me? And I'm like, dude, nothing's wrong with you. Here you are coming to another man, that being me, to talk to me about it. And you're talking about your ideal. You'd prefer to be a person that didn't have any porn in their life, or very minimal, if you will. And you're beating yourself up over the fact that you're thinking about it. Like, and I had to tell him from my own personal experience, there's things that I think about doing that aren't necessarily spiritual. There's things that I think about doing that don't necessarily are in line with recovery, right? Like, once in a while, just being a guy, like, it crossed my mind, oh man, it'd be fun to go to the strip club. Being a guy in recovery, nearly 12 years, I know I have no business going to a strip club. I'm not going to go, but I can't beat myself up for, oh my God, the thought entered my mind. And you can even tie that into substance or alcohol. Like, you know, once in a blue, I'll admit it. I was just being in Minnesota, sitting out by the lake. For some reason, my drug of choice is heroin, and really anything you can fit in a needle. But for some reason, a Budweiser in particular sounded really good that week. Now, am I going to beat myself up because I had the thought? No, I'm not. Like, that's normal. I'm a human being. That idea came into my mind. Fortunately, today I have the tools. It's fleeting and soon lost. Like, but going to people like Tom, like, get people's opinions based off of their experiences. Don't beat yourself up too much for not having clear-cut thought processes right now. That's something that we work towards. I got better at thinking these things through over the course of time. You know, I still have these negative thoughts. I'm still my own worst critic. But compared to this guy, I've got over 11 years of experience of having healthier thought processes where I got better and better and better at it. You know, it's don't be your own worst critic either. Judge yourself off of your actions, not off of your thought process.
Yeah, I think that's it, Ben. I think that was a good episode that we did, right?
I will not be my own worst critic and say that was awesome.
I think it was awesome. I do. I really do.
No, it was good, for sure. I always enjoy sitting down and talking with you, Tom.
Yeah, me too.
I've missed you.
Yeah, I missed you too, Ben. All right. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, we definitely do appreciate it. Leave us some comments, subscribe, do all that fancy whatever you would do on YouTube. Share it with somebody that you think could benefit from this episode. And if you're listening on the podcast form, leave us a review. Give us anywhere from a 1 to a 5-star. We don't really care, preferably a 5-star. It definitely helps. And if you're thinking about giving us a 1-star, maybe you can reach out to us and tell us why before you do it so we can fix it. And you can reach out to us, Tom at realrecoverytalk.com and Ben at realrecoverytalk.com. That is it. We will see y'all later.